welcome to Talk Truth. My name is Corey Huntsberger. I have my father, Alan Huntsberger, in the studio. We're going to start off with our foundational verse. The earth and everything in it, the world and its inhabitants belong to the Lord. Do you hear that? WEF, WHO, and everybody else. It belongs to the Lord. He laid its foundation on the seas, established it on the rivers. Psalm 24, 1 and 2. Powerful verse. If you do it God's way, things work. When you don't do things God's way, it kind of doesn't work, right, Dad?
Yeah, I mean, that verse means something very simple yet very powerful.
Yeah.
The whole world belongs to God, period. Not just one nation, not just one people, not just one moment in history. Every mountain, every ocean, every nation, every life belongs to him.
Yeah, every bird, every squirrel, every moose. Yeah. I'm excited about our guest. We have not had him on for a while, but he's back. We got Dr. Mark Trozzi. He's a veteran ER physician and trauma expert who's taught at the 3 top medical schools since 2020. He's been on our side, Alan. He's opposed the criminal COVID agenda, and he's fighting for human rights, justice. Dr. Trozzi, welcome to the show.
Oh, Corey and Alan, thanks very much for having me. It's great to see you, and I'm grateful for everything you guys are doing out there in the world to make it a better place. So.
Well, we're excited to have you back. It's been a while. I think it's been over a year. I know you've been really, really busy, very active. You've got you're all over the place doing all kinds of things. I know there's lots that we could talk about. I want to start with the number one question starting to pop up that we're getting on this show. And I think people are not mean about it. They really want to know. And the question is this: why do you guys keep bringing up COVID? Why do you keep talking about COVID? And I thought there's no better person to answer this question than you, because I know in your Substack, you cover it a lot. And I thought you can maybe put it in a better perspective than I could, because it's your world. You're living in it now. Why do we need to keep bringing up COVID and talking about COVID?
Well, thanks for asking. That's a good question. And there's a couple of, I'll try to hit a few highlight reasons of why. Maybe I could just preface it with people need to understand, every single one of us, with very few exceptions, most of the 8 billion people in the world, almost everybody listening to this interview, we have been through, whether you got actually injected with the COVID, we have been severely abused. We have been through major psychological abuse, the entire world. And that, I mean, now's not the time to debate that, but I think the evidence has amounted over the last 4 years. Lied to about COVID, herded, human rights invaded, forcibly injected, obstruction of treatment, people blocked from seeing their grandparents while their parents died from neglect. I mean, this went on all around the world under the WHO-funded COVID agenda. So naturally, like people who've been through any kind of traumatic psychological and physical abuse, there's a big desire to leave it behind. So I understand people are like, you know what? Enough's enough. Let's just hope I survive the shots and I miss my mom. But so that's a reason why people want to just dump it. Nobody wants to talk about the most horrific things or the abuse. A lot of people are still in a lot of denial about this because it's so shocking, but the realities are out there. I mean, you add the Epstein files, it's like there's no more debating about what happened. This was a criminal operation, abuse of mankind, medical assault on the population around the world, et cetera, fraud, racketeering. It was horrific. So I think that's one of the reasons people just like to leave it behind, because nobody wants to face it, but we have to for a couple of reasons. One, psychological health does involve facing the trauma, making sure we understand what happened and piece it back together and get rid of the behaviors that have been instilled in us through the abuse. I mean, some of those would be very obvious. For instance, remember how you used to wash your hands, turn your head the other way when you had a cough, all the habits that we learned from our grandmothers? Okay, we need to go back to that. We need to eliminate this layer of everybody wearing diapers on their faces and being super germaphobes and running around taking genetic injections for fear of things that other people are creating and promoting. So there's that side of it. But here's the other thing. So the COVID operation in a nutshell, I mean, in a real nutshell, what was it? They got a virus out there, or maybe not, but a virus out there probably 2019. 2020, they go around terrorizing the world. They put all kinds of theatrics on TV out of China, out of empty ICUs that they made look full, all that sort of stuff. and they went around PCR swabbing the world and doing a scam and telling people there were thousands and thousands and thousands of cases. They falsified death certificates, etc., told everybody people were dying when it wasn't true. Although they did kill some because they blocked good treatment that doctors like myself and others were recommending, and they imposed ridiculous mandated procedures like ventilating people and giving them remdesivir, which destroys the kidneys and kills them. So, and what was the end point of all this? Well, there is no end point if the perpetrators stay at loose. But one of the big objectives was to then corral the entire human population under false pretenses to be injected with a genetic toxin, which would cause them to poison their own bodies, perhaps till death, or perhaps until we continue to advance solutions for what's happened to people. And they got 6 billion people injected about. So that's a major issue. Now, since then, they've just been cranking out more patents. They've built more factories. They want to make messenger RNA injections for everything. And they're continuing to build their global government. I mean, even in the United States, where we think, wow, they exited the WHO. Well, yeah, they exited WHO, but there's 70 WHO collaboration centers in the USA still. So humanity is under threat of the next assault for sure. Meanwhile, there is some long COVID. I mean, this virus, I believe this virus had some nasty characteristics, and especially in the absence of treatment and other things that we need to do that we were stopped from doing. There's some people who have long-term COVID disease that's serious, some of it just as bad as the injection victims. Then you have a lot of people who've been injected and deteriorated, a lot are dead, a lot have blood clots, strokes, kids drop dead on sport fields. Now we're into the chronic phase. You have autoimmune diseases on the rise. You have cancers that are rampant, turbo cancers. So we have that also to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of COVID disease. I mean, people that didn't even take the shots are surrounded by people who shed a toxic protein called a spike protein. And so everybody's dealing with it. Like Dr. Cole once said, the world has been spiked. So there's a lot of reasons we got to deal with it. We need justice. We need accountability. We need the assets of the criminals that did this, who stole a massive portion of everyone's wealth in the world. We need that wealth to be taken from them and used for the victims. We need to address what happened. And we have a major new front in medicine, which is the pathologies caused by these injections alone. Never mind stopping all the next bunch of mRNA shots they have. We got to deal with that now. But we've got to treat what's happened. And I mean, it's going to be challenging. I mean, when you consider, just for instance, that the shots wipe out 30 to 60% of a woman's eggs in her ovaries, that it drops their fertility significantly, that we see fertility rates dropping in many countries since the shots. We have major challenges to solve if we're even going to continue to exist as free people with healthy families. So those are some of the initial reasons. I know there's more, but those are reasons why we still have to deal with COVID. Believe me, I'd just as soon go fishing and go back to, trauma medical care. But the problem that's the threat to all of our children and grandchildren is by no means fixed. I mean, we've got some ground. You got some great ground in some places like Texas and Florida. But folks, if they're on their back heels in this fight for our survival, keep hitting. Keep hitting. Now's not a time to go home and just think RFK and Dr. Latipo are going to fix it all. They're not. I think we really need to put a lot of energy in this one because we've never been this badly abused in our personal lifespans.
There's a habit that I've noticed people have, and that, it's like buying the wrong kinds of food, for example, in our grocery stores. People still go for the cheap price. What is the best price? What's the thing that's on sale? And they're willing to buy the processed foods, the processed meats, the processed potato chips, everything processed. And the education of people, you still see them sitting down, waiting for their turn to get their injection at the pharmacy. And I want to speak out, but I know that what good is that going to do? Because they're just going to look at me like some wacko that just lost his, upstairs and, put him in a straitjacket and take him out of here. So, the media is still false. The media is still lying. It's still going on. So the question that, even I come up with is, what has actually changed? What has actually changed?
Well, I agree with you. Like that, there are major challenges, and it's sad to watch such a huge swath of humanity that's been mentally abused and like fed lies, and he had the administrative state around the world, enforced that people that are supposed to be experts all tell the same lies, like doctors, unfortunately, right? And them all being coerced to participate, to inject themselves, etc. So, but at the same time, on the optimistic side of that, the for instance, if you asked me 6 years ago what I thought about vaccines, I would have said, well, I don't think about them that much. I'm a trauma doctor, an emergency doctor. But yeah, they seem to be good. They got rid of some major diseases, and I wouldn't take too many. That's where my head was at, because I didn't know what I know now. And the reason I know what I know now is because the reality before me was there was such a disconnect between what people were being told, even what I was being told to tell people, and reality in an area that I'm able to measure, because as a medical doctor I could make sense of this stuff. Um, and and so so I can look at myself and say, wow, I see the world different. Like I no longer, for instance, a lot of institutions that I thought were legitimate, I now consider illegitimate. I don't plan my life or advise my friends or family to plan their life by obeying illegitimate organizations that just committed fraud and mass murder. And the thing is, I don't think it's just like some of us. I think a huge portion of the Earth's population is awoke to the fact that we've been lied to about just about everything, and that there is indeed, strangely, I mean, I started with studying spike proteins, but you end up like, wow, there really is essentially something equivalent to a satanic cult that is controlling the food industry, governments, administrative bodies, medical colleges, is so much. This infiltration is, it's not like they popped it up overnight. This started long before COVID. I mean, decades, maybe century plus. But the thing is, a lot of us are awake to that now. And some people will say, well, when 51% of us are awake to that, we're going to vote for a person who's going to go into this old corrupt governmental systems and fix it all. And I don't believe that's the case, which is bad news and good news. The good news of that is I don't think we should wait for 51% of the population to agree with us, for the portion of us that know what the heck is going on, to live our lives intelligently and to work together and to plot our survival while ultimately planning the fall of the criminals that have done this thing. So I just feel that I'm more aware of those people. So even if it's only 3% of the population, or maybe it's 20% of the population, who knows? In the US, 80% of people believe you shouldn't be forced to inject it. 52% of people in the US now believe that the shots are toxic, the COVID shots. So it may be more than we think. But in my life, that's the people I mostly connect with, and I live in that world. We still have to deal with these old institutions, and in Canada especially, you have to deal with governments that are still fully hijacked by the enemies of the people, foreign entities, WEF, UN, WHO. So we can't be delusional. We've got major criminal gangs running major institutions, but they're not our government. And we've got to, in a practical way, day to day, live our life, eat the right food, make the right choices, educate our children, all this stuff. And people are coming together, more private homeschooling organizations, more alternative medical coaching, more people are coaching with doctors who don't even have a medical license online to resolve their cancer and getting better results than they were before they had their wake-up call, which was when the government poisoned them with COVID shots. So I think that we've got a pretty big gang now, and I think we should feel somewhat confident, but still stay humble and diligent.
Well, what is the outcome you're looking for? Because the problem is we're not seeing any accountability in the world. Whether it's the trucker convoy with the Emergencies Act that the courts have said was unlawful, illegal, and unconstitutional, no accountability. Jeffrey Epstein files coming out, a lot of people on that list, no accountability. This whole COVID scam that went on, with no accountability. The list is, it seems like that just happens over and over and over again. What is your outcome that you would love to see happen that would probably get you to the place where, like, you know what? I can hang up my hat now, go fishing and enjoy a little bit of time. You know what I mean? A little R&R. What does that outcome look like for you?
Well, for me, Plan A, which may or may not be the most likely solution, But for me, plan A would be restoration and changes made in existing institutions. So for instance, what I see some places, like what I see in Florida encourages me. It isn't perfect. What I see in Texas, the attorney general there, Ken Paxton, clamping down on a lot of medical crimes and things like that. So that's what I would like to see. But you see, that's a long hurdle because especially in some places like Canada, the institutions are so infiltrated, so corrupted, their actual foundational structure. Like in Canada, we're based on the Westminster system of government where we're all subjects and slaves to the king or queen and their heirs. You guys rejected that a long time ago in the States. And I know we're kind of talking both countries here. Um, so I think that the chance of restoring existing institutions is higher in the States, I hope. And wouldn't that be weird? The same institutions that were hijacked and used to create COVID, the Department of Defense, like basically is at the lead of the COVID, the bioweapons, the whole thing. Wouldn't it be interesting to see that same political machinery become the solution? And I see some hope for that in the States compared to a lot of places. I see that hope for that in a few countries. In other countries, I'd love to see Maduro's get a roommate of a couple of corrupt foreign agents operating in Canada at the federal and provincial levels. That would make me happy. I would take a day off and go fishing right away. But but at the same time, I think just more and more people coming to the realization that these institutions are not legitimate. For instance, if a so-called government commits fraud and racketeering and medical assault and poisons the population and kills people and covers it up, then that's not a legitimate government. We must reject that internally. In other words, for people to make that shift and say, okay, this thing exists, but it's not the government and it's not my government. It's a problem. And I think the more we shift our weight, instead of keep going, well, the government's got to fix it. The government ain't going to fix it and do the right thing. Not anytime soon. I really respect and I help people that are trying to do that. But we have to take the power away in our daily lives. And I think a big thing, you guys would know more about this, but when we see, this legalese, all this corporate law, it's actually in the end, what you see is it's a way to twist God's laws backwards and upside down until you're saying the opposite, until you're telling someone, hey, you're going to go to jail because you protected your family against somebody that broke in and tried to kill you, or hey, you're going to take this shot or you're going to lose your job, like this kind of stuff. And so I think just that realization is very key to start disempowering it. People need to, there's a lot of ways to do what Gandhi said in terms of resisting, right? People need to be creative. And that's the nice thing about our team. Our team is smart. Less of them are poisoned. The ones that are poisoned are doing something about it. And we need to be very creative. We need to think a little bit opportunistically when we think about how we're going to defend our grandchildren. And, death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. The thing that amazes me is people are looking towards God and Christianity like they've never looked before. I mean, we've had people come up to us who, have openly said to us, I've been an atheist all my life. But now I'm starting to lean towards Christianity. And of course, I just saw a report on television today with Gen Z, is, filling churches. I mean, the younger generation are saying, hey, we need this. And I'm going, wow, that blows my mind, because, on the one hand, it's like, well, grandma wants you to go to church, kind of a thing. It's like, no, I don't want to go to church, Now it's Gen Z going to church and grandma's home, and mom and dad are home. But so I'm excited about what is happening from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense too, because for instance, in people that have like substance abuse issues or people have major destructive self issues, it's they hit a rock bottom. Like there's a point where a person looks, they're laying in the ditch, They've just urinated on themselves and thrown up their last bottle of whiskey. They've lost their home. That's the point where a person goes, you know what? I got a problem. So whatever rock bottom is people realize a problem. And you look around in like the mainstream media, I mean, the garbage they put in front of our children. 20, 30 years ago, it was like, hey, if you listen to the song, there's kind of some bad lessons in there. There's some subtle, maybe even satanic stuff. But now, I mean, they're right out front. I mean, they got girls dancing around with fires and snakes. It's blatant satanic rituals. You've got even kids don't even realize that they're chanting to call out demons and stuff. So maybe that's it. Maybe like we've hit that rock bottom, and some people, even young kids, are going, you know what? I want life. I want life. I'm not
Yeah.
going with this anymore. I'm not following the Pied Piper. I think that's beautiful news.
Yeah. I think you did a really good job too explaining why we keep talking about COVID, because we're pointing to a government and everything they did and how evil it was and how horrible it was, and we're now applying it to today with all these bills, Bill C9, Bill C15, all these powers they want. That's why we point back to COVID, because we're going, look what they did before they had all this. What do you think they're going to do now when they have, ultimate power, to do whatever they want? So I think that's a really good thought. We've got like a minute 30 left. I want to ask you about doctors. There's you, there's Shoemaker, there's Hoff, there's Macus, there's, the list goes on. Hodgkinson. I mean, there's a ton of doctors like yourself that said, this is the line, we're not going to cross it, and we're willing to lose our career, our jobs, to be able to fight, and you guys have been proven right. In the last 4 years, all the signs have said, hey, you were right 4 years ago, 5 years ago. The doctors that didn't take that stand, are you seeing them, warming up now towards what you guys have been saying and the proof that's been coming out? Are they not? Are they scared? What's that like in your world?
Well, I think there's a mixture. I mean, so the good news is I think it's at least 2 years now that I noticed some doctors actually coming out when I was giving public talks, often wearing hats and sunglasses, but they were there. I even had a colleague show up from one of the departments I used to work at to a talk I was holding and sort of say, yeah, I've kind of tried to keep it low. My husband's like struggling for his life, but I agree with you. Unfortunately, there's a kind of a misconception that people who are able to pass difficult written examinations, that they're more resistant to mind control. And by that, the idea that, well, doctors are really smart, so they're more resistant to mind control. But that's not true. That's not true at all. In fact, there's many studies that show hypnosis often superior to people that would have higher scores on tests, because sometimes high scores on tests is the ability to conform in detail. And so we have a situation. The doctors were a real epicenter of the mental abuse, even though at the beginning, when the other people were declared non-essential, doctors were declared essential. We were kind of heroized. They were lying to the public, saying that we went from being busy doctors to being cruddy busy, risking our lives, when the truth was we were sitting on our hands with no work in 2020, right? So the doctors were kind of propped up. We were given a big vacation. We were given bonus bucks. But then we were forced to be injected if we want to keep our hospital job. So anybody that kept it through all that, took the shots, gave the shots, the mental stress of facing all that, like imagine going, oh my God, I injected myself with poison. I injected my wife, my kids, my neighbors, all my patients, the nurses. I just went along with safe and effective. I thought Dr. Trozzi and Dr. Hoff are crazy. I didn't even realize what messenger RNA is or pseudomethyluridine. Like that's a big one to face from people who are used to being, well, I'm a doctor and I'm very good and I'm very accomplished and I'm proud of myself. So there's a lot of mental resistance. I think it will take, I'd like to see things like, the law shouldn't require democratic a vote. Like if people commit murder and they could get the whole town to vote, it's okay. Doesn't matter. So I think the best thing for all the doctors was to see high-level operatives in this thing, like heads of colleges, ministers of health, people that we know really knew the truth and led this assault on mankind, and then went after the nurses and doctors trying to protect people. When people see them arrested, it's going to be a lot easier for us to rehabilitate our doctors and nurses. For now, we have to realize our doctors and nurses, a lot of them are poisoned, a lot of them are struggling mentally and spiritually and emotionally, and you've got to be careful following their advice. That's why those of us not in that old system are focused on educating people how to stay healthy, because you're going to have to take responsibility at this time in history, mostly.
Wow. I love that compassion towards them. You know, they were institutionalized too, even before COVID happened. They were used to a system, and it kind of betrayed them. Dr. Trozzi, thank you so much for being on the show. We're out of time. Really appreciate you and all that you're doing and the fight that you're fighting. We're so grateful for you. Thank you so much.
Well, Corey and Ellen, thank you so very much. And we'll stay on mission, and please pray for us, and we'll keep praying for you guys too.
Thank you.
Well, it was great having Dr. Trozzi on. We got to have him back quickly.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
I hope our conversation helped answer the question that many people have been asking. Why do we keep talking about COVID that you brought up? And the reason is actually very simple. If we do not understand what happened, we cannot prevent it from happening again. And during those years, we witnessed something that affected the entire world. Governments took extraordinary powers. Medical decisions were centralized. People lost jobs, freedoms, and in many cases, the ability to make personal health choices. Families were separated, treatments were debated, and even today, many of those questions remain unresolved. So when we continue to talk about COVID, it is not about living in the past, it's about learning from the past. And I think that's important, because asking important questions like what happened, or what was done right, or what was done wrong, or how can we make sure that human rights and medical ethics and personal freedoms are protected in the future. Because history has taught us something very important. When difficult events are ignored instead of examined, they tend to repeat themselves. So our goal here on Talk Truth is very simple. We want to keep asking questions, keep seeking truth, and keep having respectable conversations that help people think clearly about the world we're living in. Yeah. And ultimately, our hope is that truth leads to wisdom, and wisdom leads to better decisions in the future.
Yeah. Amen. You want to help support our mission, keep this kind of conversation and truth on the air. We are viewer supported. We don't take government funds or special interest groups. It's just because of the generosity of those that watch this show that we're able to continue. You can go to our website to partner up with us at gotalktruth.com/donate. Many different ways to give digitally that way. If you'd like to do it through the mail, you can. In Canada, you can send it to 246 Stuart Green Southwest, Suite 3260, Calgary, Alberta, T3H3C8. And in the United States, you can send it to 4904 South Power Road, Suite 103-152, Mesa, Arizona, 85212. All right, Dad, we're out of time. We'll see you guys later.
Love you.